on. And I want to thank everybody for coming and apologize again for being late. And I guess, let me guess where we will start. Well, we start with the reappointments. Let me see here. We have a couple, one for the animal. Do we have any of those speakers, any of those people with us, Chris?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Ms. The course is on. I have not checked to see if anyone else, but she is on.
Who's on?
Christine, the course.
Okay, that would be my appointment to the animal hearing board. Christine?
Yes, hello, how are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. It's nice to see you again. You actually came out to my shelter a few months ago for a tour for the Barton House.
Absolutely, I do recall.
Yes.
Would you like to say a few words? It's certainly my pleasure to reappoint you. But do you have anything you'd like to add? We certainly appreciate your service to the county.
I spent 25 years in the automotive industry, and about 12 years ago, I decided that I really wanted to do a bit more meaningful. So I left my position and I became a certified animal trainer. And for a few years, I worked exclusively with some private clients, but also I got involved with the Baltimore Humane Society. I was brought in to work with a group of abused pit bulls. They were locally famous at the time. They were called the Pit Six.
Hello?
Took over as the executive director. This is my second term on the Animal Hearing Board. It's something that I really enjoy, and I look forward to serving the community in the next 2 years.
Okay. Well, we thank you so much, and we look forward to voting on your reappointment Monday.
Awesome.
Chair,
Yes.
just want to state that Mr. Andrew Levine, who was an animal advocate and associated with the Humane Society, speaks very highly of Ms. DeCourt, called me on her behalf, and so I wanted to share that with the members.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in terms of reappointments on the line? Chris?
No, Mr. Chair. Mr. Bernstein or Ms. Gilmore or Mr. Meyer. None of the other reappointments or appointments are on today.
Okay. I thank you very much.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just want to speak on behalf of Mr. Bernstein. He runs First Fruits Farm up in Councilman Catch's district. It's an outstanding operation. And they were providing training and fruits and vegetables during the pandemic, and they do great work up in the north part of the county. And as a side note, I went to school with Mr. Bernstein, and he was an outstanding long distance runner. So much so that I always finished third, and to this day I still have regret about not being able to outrun Mr. Bernstein or Drew Marshall, who finished second, and then I was third. But we beat the rest of the class. But one day I'm going to rerun Mr. Bernstein. Thank you.
But you were first on
Okay.
Tuesday. You were first last Tuesday, though.
Well,
Okay.
where they're still counting the votes, so we'll see.
Well, okay, you were first.
Thank you.
Well, I certainly look forward to Rick Bernstein representing us on the Agriculture Preservation Advisory Board, Holly Gilmore, and Stephen Myers. All of these are my appointments for reappointment, so I look forward to them serving. Now we'll move on to Terry Hickey, Director of Housing and Community Development. Bill 48-22, page 1.
Right. Well, good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the council. Hope everyone's having a good summer. The administration is requesting a supplemental appropriation of federal funds totaling $29,666 for the Continuum of Care Gifts and Grants Fund Program. These funds will be used to provide ongoing rental assistance and other supports to 11 formerly homeless individuals and families through August 30th, which is the conclusion of the grant program. HUD originally allocated these funds to a private nonprofit organization that is no longer able to perform those services under its existing agreement with HUD. So back in May, HUD approached the county and asked if DHCD would accept this direct allocation in order to provide continued rental assistance to these 11 households through the remainder of the grant period.
Double check anything?
We anticipate receiving additional HUD funds in FY23 to continue this assistance to those 11 households, and our team will continue to provide direct assistance until a new nonprofit partner is identified to take over this grant. No county matching funds are required, although we may utilize other existing funds at our disposal if what's left in this grant agreement isn't enough to cover the rent for these families through the end of the grant period. I'll conclude there, see if there's any questions.
Any questions or comments? Seeing none, why don't you move right on to Bill 49-22, Mr. Hickey?
Will do. So more on the good news front for investing in our constituents. The administration is requesting a supplemental appropriation of federal ERA2 funds totaling $6 million for DHCD's emergency rental assistance program. These funds originally were granted directly to the state of Maryland by the U.S. Treasury. They are being subgranted at the discretion of state DHCD to Baltimore County as additional rental assistance funds. In part, this is an acknowledgement of the continued need in Baltimore County for additional rental assistance, but I also think it is due to the county's track record for efficiently dispersing rental assistance to tenants in a timely and efficient manner. These funds will be used, like the other ERA2 funds, primarily for rent and utility assistance. And DHCD expects to serve a minimum of 480 additional county households with these proposed grant funds. Not part of this supplemental appropriation, but important to note, the state is also awarding $11.5 million additional dollars to the United Way of Central Maryland, specifically for Baltimore County tenants through our STEP partnership, of which I know the council is well aware. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Mr. Hickey. Any questions or comments from the members? Thank you very much. We'll move on to page 8. Dr. Branch. Bill 50-22, Opioid Abatement Fund.
Good evening, Chairman Jones. Unfortunately, it's not Dr. Branch. It's Lawrence. I just play a doctor on TV. Deputy Director of Administration for Health and Human Services. I'm here to present the bill. The administration is seeking approval to create a non-lapsing opioid abatement fund. The creation of this fund is mandated in the settlement agreement of the National Prescription Opioid Litigation from July of 2021. The purpose of the fund is to promote the public health, safety, and welfare of county residents and communities by providing for the care, treatment, and other programs designed to address the misuse and abuse of opioid products, treat and mitigate opioid use or related disorders, and mitigate other alleged effects, including those injured as a result of the opioid epidemic. The fund will be used to participate with other government agencies or private sector institutions to leverage funding for special projects. The Director of Health and Human Services, Dr. Branch, and the Director of Budget and Finance, Ed Blades, shall administer the fund according to accepted principles of sound accounting and fiscal management, and they shall maintain records in accordance with general accepted accounting principles in conformity with the requirements of this settlement. The Director of Health and Human Services shall provide each member of the County Council with an annual report on or before December 31st that outlines the financial assistance that has been provided under this title.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Richardson. And any questions or comments from the member?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Councilman Poe.
Mr. Richardson, so there's no allocation of dollars associated with this fund. So is this enabling us to use these funds like an appropriation?
This is to create the actual fund for us to accept the funding that will be allocated to us.
Because I know there was a huge settlement, correct? That
Correct.
will
So
be coming our way.
yes, we
A
do.
portion of it will be coming our way.
Yes, we do have an expectation to be receiving a portion of that settlement. That is still in the works right now, but we do have some knowledge that we will be receiving upwards of $50 million from the settlement.
Right. I know it was a very large number. I was afraid to say $50 million, but thank you for affirming that. And this piece of legislation allows us to allocate those funds to address the opioid crisis. Is that
Correct.
okay? Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
you're welcome. Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none, we will move on to page 65, Chief Run. Resolution 30-22.
Good evening, Council Chair and Council members. Thank you for this opportunity to come before you this evening. In recognition of the efforts of the Baltimore County Volunteer Fire Companies through the COVID pandemic, the County Executive proposed in January 2022 grants to each company for the Baltimore County's coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds allocation. From the $1 million grant awards to each company were allocated based on the number of volunteers that earned at least 50 LoSAP points in the prior year. What that means is they were actively engaged during that time. Each company has affirmed and assigned attestations that their use of the funds will abide by all federal and Department of Treasury guidance, including maintaining the appropriate records and receipts for their expenditures. If the proposed County Council resolution is approved, the Office of Budget and Finance would coordinate the payment with each of those companies. Thank you for the opportunity.
Any questions or comments from the member?
Chairman,
Yes, Councilman Marks.
thank you. So Chief Rund, these funds are ready to go out, correct?
Yes, sir.
There's nothing more that needs to be done. They just need to be dispersed.
We have to get the monies from OBF, but yes, sir.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Councilmember, they
Sure
are
we,
indeed ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be welcome news for the volunteer firefighters, and I thank you all for your work getting these out. Thanks.
Quite welcome.
Absolutely. We certainly
Very welcome,
appreciate
sir.
the work of our volunteer firefighters, and it's important that we show them the support or give them the support they deserve. Any additional questions or comments?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Mr.
Councilman
Paterka, go ahead, please.
So thank you, Councilman Crandall. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to say that I think it's important that that we, with the tremendous work that our volunteer firefighters have do on a regular basis, and over the past two plus years with the COVID pandemic, going above and beyond what the level of service that they have already gone above and beyond, even going that extra mile. I think it's important that we allow these funds to be distributed in an expeditious fashion. So I'm really pleased that this resolution has come forward, and that we were able to have these funds distributed as allocated to each of the, or as described to each of the local volunteer fire companies. I also wonder, is there a nexus to the item we discussed previously about this opioid settlement? Because I think many of the runs that our volunteer firefighters are called to do relate to overdoses. And so I think Chief Rund, I'd ask you and perhaps the health department and Ms. Rogers to look at that nexus to see if we can address some of the cost of that through different fund sources coming through. I think it's great that we were able to use the ARPA funding, but also maybe this opioid settlement fund can be used across the board for all the agencies, the health department, housing, fire department, volunteer fire companies, to address a growing problem that's just really a crisis in many families. So something to think about, but thank you, Chief Rund, and thank you to the administration and to my colleagues for bringing this particular resolution forward, because I think it's so important that that our volunteer fire companies have a stable foundation and are able to continue to do the great work that they do day in and day out. And it's a level of commitment that you don't see all that often. So kudos to and great work to all of our volunteer firefighters.
Thank you, Councilman.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, Councilman Quirk.
Yeah, just super briefly, that's an easy one to put my name on as the resolution. I think everybody, this is an easy, simple one and good one. And Chief, when you have time later, maybe we can catch up on specifically Cajunsville Fire Station on Frederick Road. I'd like to kind of better understand where everything's at and kind of just understand the details a little more. But thank you. I appreciate the work you're doing. You're doing great work. So thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Be happy to reach out.
Okay. Thank you very much. And
Mr. Chair, we have 3 speakers on this item.
Well, Mr. Chair, if I just quick order of business, if I may.
absolutely, Councilman Crandall, and then we'll get to the speaker.
Thank you, Chairman Jones. I'd just like to ask our secretary to add me as a co-sponsor to this resolution.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sure, certainly. Ms. Valcastro, you want to call the speakers? I'm looking at them now.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Our first speaker is Michael Connolly. Mr. Connolly?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. Just would like to reach out and ask for all the council support on this resolution, and it's important to the volunteer stations. Each of our stations experienced funding losses during COVID, which we have not recovered from, and this will go a long way to assist us in doing so. The distribution is performance-based, as Chief Rund indicated, by the number of active participants during the COVID era, if we will. And this funding goes directly to deliver services to our citizens. I call it putting rubber on the road. So it's funding that goes directly back out that our citizens will see. So I thank you all and appreciate your support.
Well, we certainly appreciate you coming and testifying today, and appreciate your service as well. Ms. Valcastro, next speaker.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Our next speaker is Kathleen Resnick. Ms. Resnick?
Wait, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Hi, good afternoon, and thank you for the kind words towards all the volunteers and the opportunity to speak today. I'm Kathleen Resnick. I'm president of the Pikesville Volunteer Fire Company, and I've been a 31-year volunteer in this county as a firefighter EMT. The 29 volunteer fire companies in this county save our county over $60 million annually. And the 29 volunteer fire companies stepped up during COVID and responded to the needs of all the residents of Baltimore County. And this is after leaving our full-time jobs, school, and all of our families. All the BCVFA companies fought for over a year for recognition during the COVID pandemic. And last March, the county executive announced the $1 million that would be dispersed through the ARPA money to the 29 volunteer fire companies. At that time, all companies turned in the required paperwork to receive the money, only to be told in May we needed more paperwork done. This resolution will allow the volunteer fire companies to receive the well-needed money without the need for the extensive time-consuming paperwork the county already has in their possession through our current reimbursement policy. I personally want to thank Councilman Patoka for his time and effort for this resolution to the county council members. and look forward to all the support of this resolution. Of course, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the County Executive Johnny O for his recognition for the $1 million to all the volunteers in this county. Again, thank you all for all your continued support for public safety in our county. Thank you.
Thank you so much for calling in and certainly appreciate your service. Our next speaker, Ms. Belcastro.
Certainly, Mr. Chair, our last speaker for this item is Stephen Kleeman. Mr. Kleeman? Mr. Kleeman?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, you can.
Yes, Steve Kleeman. I am a member of Chestnut Ridge Fire Company. I have 40 years of service in the county volunteer service. I wanted to say, first of all, thank you to Councilman Patoka for sponsoring this resolution. And also, of course, thank you to our county executive, Johnny O, as well. As Mike Connolly previously mentioned, a lot of the volunteer companies around the county were not able to hold many fundraising events due to COVID, especially 2 years ago during the lockdown. So it's very important that we get this funding. And I just wanted to say once again, thank you. And we very much appreciate the efforts of the county council to get this resolution passed.
Well, thank you so much, Steve, for your service to the county, and thanks for calling. Any additional questions, comments?
I forgot to thank the chief.
Okay. All right. And of course, we certainly appreciate you, Chief Ron.
I appreciate you too, sir.
You're more than welcome.
I'm sorry about that. This is Kathleen. I didn't know I wasn't muted, but I did want to thank you too, Chief. And
No worries.
I get nervous on these things.
It's all good.
Chief Steve Kleeman, thank you as well.
You guys did a great job, Steve and Kathleen. Thank you.
Yes, teamwork makes the dream work.
There you go. And giving money to the fire service can't make me feel better.
Keep the wagon wheel.
That's right. That's right. Let's keep it rolling.
All right. In the spirit of keeping it rolling, let's move on to page 68. Ms. Alcantara Antone, the Director of the Public Library.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the members of the council. Good evening and happy summer. I hope you guys are enjoying your summer. The administration is requesting authorization for the Baltimore County Public Library to expend additional non-local funds totaling $399,000. These funds represent unanticipated Maryland State Library Agency funds in the amount of $250,000 and various private grants in the amount of $149,000. BCPL advised that the funds will be used within the general administration program towards the purchase of a brand new vehicle to bring science, technology, reading, engineering, arts, math, also known as STREAM, and school support-based services to underserved communities in Baltimore County. The balance of the vehicle cost will be $299,560, and that will be funded out of the county's equipment financing program. Thank you. Any questions?
Any questions or comments from the members?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Patoka.
Thank you. I was just curious about the size of the vehicle, given that we had a pretty robust discussion before this meeting on the need for CDL license. So I just was wondering, who is the driver? Do you need a special license to drive this vehicle, or? I mean, I think it's an outstanding program. Just curious as to how we mobilize the vehicle.
Thank you, Councilman Patoka. That's an outstanding question. All of our vehicles, including this one, are small enough so that anybody with a regular driver's license can drive them. So they do not require a CDL license or anything like that to be able to drive them. And that gives us more flexibility where we can have more of our staff members who have driver's licenses drive the vehicle on an as-needed basis.
Thank you so much, Ms. Alcantara and Juan.
My pleasure.
Any additional questions or comments? Hearing none. Thank you very much. And we'll move right along.
Mr. Jones,
Yes,
Mr.
yes,
Chairman, I'm sorry. I
Sorry.
just wanted to thank the library director for her outreach to me, and the good work that is going on, particularly as we look at long-term plans for some of our older facilities. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilman Marks. Now we'll move on to page 71. Leonard Howard, Economic and Workforce Development. Grant.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. The administration is requesting approval of grants totaling $3.586 million to arts, sciences, cultural and tourism events, activities, and programs consistent with the adopted FY23 budget. In consultation with the Commission on Arts and Sciences, Baltimore County distributes arts, sciences, cultural, and tourism grants. These grants are critical to ensuring our residents have access to tourism and arts assets and ensure that our county organizations and assets may continue to thrive. The FY23 grants total over $3.5 million, of which $3.1 million are operating grants. The Arts and Sciences Commission has worked diligently to review the applications and made the recommendations that have been presented for your approval. Our cultural institutions and tourism assets were one of the hardest hit by the pandemic. These grants could not be more important to ensuring that these important offerings remain available for our county's residents and continue to provide invaluable programming, even as COVID still continues to persist in our lives. Happy to address any questions.
Any questions or comments from the members? Thank you very much, Mr. Howie. Now we'll move on to page 12 with Director Lafferty. Contract for sale.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. The administration is requesting approval to acquire a perpetual conservation easement on approximately 53.5 acres of land in the under the county's Rural Legacy Program in the Piney Run Rural Legacy area, which is in District 3. Fox Springs Farm LLC currently owns the property, which is located in Reisterstown. And this contract would be for $286,064. The county's Rural Legacy Program seeks applications from rural legacy area sponsors, which work with property owners to help identify their preservation opportunities. We're able to match county funds, which then increases the opportunity to increase and obtain more state funds for the acquisition of more lands. This says we have been paying, or excuse me, we'll be paying approximately $5,344 per acre based upon a formula that is set out in the Baltimore County Code. And with that, Mr. Chairman, we request your approval.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lafferty. Any questions or comments from the members? Seeing none, thank you very much. We'll move on to page 16. Director Blade. Another contract.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. The administration is requesting approval of a contract with McKinnon, Shelton and Henn, LLP, to provide bond counsel services in connection to the county's general obligation bond refinancing or financing, certificates of participation and related financing projects. This is a competitively negotiated 3-year contract with 2 additional 3-year renewal periods and the option to extend the initial term or any renewal term an additional 90 days. And the compensation of the initial 3-year term is estimated to be $594,246 and $2,148,132 for the entire 9-year and 3-month term. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions or comments from the members? Thank you very much, Director Blades. Now we'll move on to Rob O'Connor, our Office of Information Technology. We're going to talk about RFID.
Good evening, Chairman, members of the council. Hope all are doing well. This fiscal matter is a contract with Biblioteca for licenses, maintenance, and support and equipment of the RFID devices in Baltimore County Public Libraries. These are also known as the self-check kiosk and the security gates. These kiosks obviously are crucial to the ease of checking out items within Baltimore County libraries, and the security gates protect the 1.8 million items that are within our libraries. This contract, if approved by council, is a one-year term with 4 one-year renewals with a cap not to exceed $1.8 million.
Extended period.
Thank you. And there's an amendment as well? Was that amendment on another contract?
I believe that is a different amendment. I believe that is the Motorola contract, sir.
Okay. Any questions or comments so far? None? You want to go ahead and talk about the amendment to the Motorola contract?
Yes, I do apologize for the process at which this took. This is an amendment to extend the Motorola contract. OIT did begin this process many months ago. Unfortunately, Motorola returned their terms and conditions on July 13th, 13 days ago, with a new 57-page contract. I do want to extend a grateful acknowledgement to the Office of Law for their quick and diligent work for us to negotiate down the terms of this contract. Everything was negotiated to the county's favor. We are going to hold the cybersecurity terms and conditions until December 1st. This contract is for an initial 1 year from September 1, 2022 to August 31st, 2023 for the 800 megahertz P25 radio system. This radio system is obviously critical for all of our public safety frontline workers, also utilized by Department of Aging, Department of Corrections, and Public Works. This contract will extend the cap up to $21,400,000 with an initial first-year expenditure of $1,612,751.
Okay. Any questions or comments on the amendment? Motorola has been like the gold standard for quite some time. We thank you. We'll move on to page 24.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I just wanted to mention as a follow-up to Mr. O'Connor that the reason this matter came before you all today as a walk-on, as we like to call it, is because as Mr. O'Connor said, they did not receive the contract back from Motorola timely, and due to the urgency of the contract and what it entails, public safety and the digital communication system, I spoke with Ms. Rogers and Mr. O'Connor today and felt that it was appropriate to have it go on for today and then for next Monday for the vote. As a result, there's not a note from the auditor's office because obviously it's just being brought to you today. But the only other thing I would add is that Motorola is familiar. There was, I think, an amendment granted in 2017 and also 2013. So if the council members do have any questions, I'm sure we can provide more information if necessary. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you very much. Moving right along to page 24. Ms. Faith Thomas in Real Estate Compliance.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and council members, and thank you for the opportunity to present the acquisition of a parcel located at 2900 Hammonds Ferry Road. The administration is requesting approval of this contract, and the property totals approximately 1.766 acres. The acquisition price is $3,170,000, and the purpose is to provide a public recreation center in the Lansdowne area. The current owner, Leadership Through Athletics, Inc., is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that is located at the Hammonds Ferry Road location. It's zoned ML Manufacturing Light and BR Business Roadside. We obtained 2 appraisals pursuant to the program open space policy for review by the Maryland Department of Natural Resources. One recommending $3,440,000 and one recommending $2,900,000 And the average of the two appraised values is $3,140,000, which is the agreed upon settlement price. And the county is expecting full program open space reimbursement for this purchase. The property is improved with recreational facilities and a converted dwelling, and the contracts provides that all improvements shall remain in place with the exception of a small shed. The county will convert the existing turnkey indoor recreational facility into a public recreation center to be operated by the Department of Recreation and Parks using its agency-directed program model, which is intended to provide diverse recreational opportunities, both program and drop-in, in communities where recreation councils are struggling to meet local recreational needs. And the office expects that the facility will be open for public use by winter 2022 to spring 2023. This proposed acquisition is the only planned acquisition for this capital project job. The county's financial system indicates that as of July 6, 2022, $9,640 has been encumbered and expended for project expenses, excluding the amount encumbered for the acquisition itself.
Okay, well, thank you so much for your work on this issue. Councilman Quirk.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and do want to acknowledge and appreciate the county executive very specifically for his leadership and his team. Without the county exec's efforts, we may not be seeing this, but can the county council not think of a better way to really tap into program open space funding? I mean, this is just such a great example of using program open space funding for the right reasons. And the Grace family, I mean, they've been such a great family for Lansdowne for years and years, and often many times has supported leadership through athletics through just their own personal finances and their own personal investment as well. And so it's great to see it go into really good public use, especially in an area like Lansdowne that really can benefit from it. Brian White and the board of leadership through athletics has been exceptional. Just really good board, good group of people. Obviously, I know our former county executive, Don Moeller. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Don Moeller, who has talked to me and talked to the county executive about this project dozens of times, perhaps. And it's a great one. And of course, former Councilman Sam Moxley's been very involved. We've all been down to leadership through athletics. Not sure if other council members have gone down there, but it's quite a great place, and what a great win for the community. And so again, my appreciation to county exec, to the everybody who worked on this contract, and I think this is a great win. Thanks so much.
Well, thank you for that endorsement, and Mr. Brace has been wonderful to work with.
Fantastic. I'm very excited about the opportunities and the enjoyment this will bring to the citizens of Lansdowne and surrounding community. So
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Councilman Marks.
Yeah, thank you. Councilman Quirk and Councilwoman Bevins, you'll be leaving us after the conclusion of this term. And Councilman Quirk, I know this must be really satisfying for you to see. As you serve on the council, I think you begin to take a very holistic view of the county. And it has been really refreshing this term to see the amount of projects that are underway in terms of open space and recreation, really almost throughout every part of the county. This sounds like a really good initiative, and I really think it adds to that whole potpourri of recreational programs underway from Catonsville to Dundalk.
Thank you, Councilman Marks. Congratulations again, Councilman Quirk.
Mr. Chair.
The Lansing.
Councilman Patoka, thank you.
Councilman Patoka.
So this project sounds outstanding, and it's something I hope we can do more of, and it sounds like it's a great model, not only for the first district, but for the entire county. In fact, it's so inspiring. It brought forward the word potpourri, which I've never heard used in a council meeting.
Yes.
So let's continue the potpourri moving forward, and this is exciting for Baltimore County. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Thank you. And now we will move on to page 27. Mr. Brady Lockton, Deputy Director of Environmental Protection and Sustainability. Page 27.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, council members. The administration is requesting approval of two contracts with Apex Companies LLC and Ecotone LLC to provide on-call stormwater management facility services and environmental restoration services on county sites. Each contract commences upon council approval, continues for 1 year, and renews automatically for 4 additional 1-year periods, with the option to extend any initial term or any term thereafter for 120 days. The contracts don't specify a maximum compensation for the initial 1-year term or for the entire 5-year, 4-month term. However, the compensation for both contractors combined may not exceed the amount appropriated from the council for the services for the entire contract term. It's estimated the compensation for both contractors combined would be approximately $3.5 million for the first year and a total of $17.5 million for the entire 5-year, 4-month term.
Okay. Any questions or comments? None? Thank you, sir. Moving right along to the next contract.
Sure. For this is for on-call submerged aquatic vegetation waterway dredging design services. The administration is requesting approval of a contract with Bayland Consultants and Designers to provide on-call consulting services for the design of various waterway dredging projects and the collection and mapping of submerged aquatic vegetation throughout the county. The contract commences upon council approval, continues for 5 years, and renews automatically for 2 additional 1-year periods. It shall remain in effect until the earlier date upon which the required services are completed or the county terminates the agreement. The contract does not specify maximum compensation for the 5-year term, but it may not exceed $1.5 million for the 7-year term.
Okay, any questions or comments from the member? Hearing none, thank you very much. And now we move on to page 35. It's Deb Schindler.
Good evening, Council President and members of the Council. Thank you in advance for your time this evening. I bring forth to you an on-call contract for landscaping architect and engineer service agreement. This contract is awarded to Site Resources, Mahan, Wrinkle and Associates, Bailey, Whitley, Cox and Magnin, LLC, Johnson, Marinian and Thomas, Inc., and Whitman, Ricard and Associates, LLP were selected by the Professional Selection Service Committee in December of 22 to provide professional landscaping architect, engineer services, civil engineer services as needed for new construction, alteration, and renovation projects, and particularly associated with our recreation and park areas. This agreement shall be in effect for 2 years from the date of execution and will have up to 2 additional 1-year periods. The maximum that each consultant will receive is $2,500,000. I think it's important to note that this contract, and it did go through the PSSC, was also competitive. There was a selection based on the best and most qualified. The MVE is a 20% MVE. And most importantly, I think it's very important to recognize the importance of this contract for Rec and Parks, who has really enhanced the creativity and the design of the amenities in the park. And we really felt like this would be a contract that we could, that we developed to really select are firms that are much more qualified and very specialized in assisting recs and parks with their development of the creativity that they're looking for in all of our parks as we expand for our citizens. That ends my testimony. I'll be glad to take any questions.
Any questions or comments from the members? Thank you very much, Ms. Schindler. Now we move on to page 39. Ms. Laura Rowell.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. The administration is requesting approval of a contract with a Legacy Manor LLC. The senior assisted living will be part of the contracts for our senior assisted living subsidy program, whereby through state funds, we subsidize the expenses of those living in assisted livings who meet our eligibility criteria. So this is just one more assisted living we're adding to the options for our consumers, which would bring us to a total of 34.
Okay, any questions or comments from the members? All right, Ms. Rowley, moving right along to page 43.
Yes, thank you. The administration is requesting approval of 21 contracts to provide gap filling services. In this case, personal emergency response devices, pharmaceutical supplies, and medically prescribed drugs to frail, ill, or disabled elderly county residents who meet eligibility criteria. These contracts were selected through a non-competitive solicitation. We put this out to anyone who is legally operating in the county. And therefore, these are all contracts that met the criteria to do business with Baltimore County. And this will allow our consumers are given a list of people that they can choose from, companies they can select, and they're able to do consumer selection on their own with the providers that we have listed.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, thank you, Ms. Rowley.
Thank you.
Now we will move on to page 47, Mr. Tom Flagg. Metropolitan District Financing.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and honorable members of council. Fiscal Matter 10, the administration is requesting approval of a contract with Duke's Root Control, Inc. to provide chemical root control treatment services for sanitary sewer lines as needed. The contract will commence upon council approval and continue for 1 year initial term with an additional 4 1-year periods for options to renew, as well as the option to extend the initial term or any renewal term an additional 120 days. Contract does not specify a maximum compensation for the initial 1-year term. However, the entire 5-year and 4-month term may not exceed $1,597,462, including all renewal and extension periods. This contract was procured based on a best qualified experience competitive bid process. And the MBE WBE goal on this contract is 25%. These services are a vital part of the root control program included in Baltimore County DPWT revised collection system operation and maintenance plan in order to meet our federally mandated consent decree obligations.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? None. Moving right on to the next contract, page 51, Mr. Flagg.
Yes, administration is requesting approval of 2 contracts to provide tier two on-call sanitary sewer rehabilitation design service for the county. These projects typically exceed $100,000 in value per project, and the 2 contractors selected were Johnson, Miriam, Mimmerin and Thompson Inc., JMT, and Rummel, Klepper and Call LLP. Each contract commences upon council approval and continues for a 4-year initial term with 2 options to renew for 1-year periods. Each contract, the contracts do not specify a maximum compensation for the initial 4-year term. However, the compensation may not exceed $5 million per each contractor for a total of $10 million combined for the entire 6-year term, including the renewal periods. These contracts were selected during our Professional Services and Selection Committee meeting held on November 1st of 2021, based on a best qualified and experienced competitive bid process, and each one does have an MBE, WBE requirement for the contract of 20%.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the members?
Yes, Mr. Chair. So one, Ms. Schindel, you and Ms. Schindel were really tearing up all my architectural and engineering friends' name is Johnson Murmuran.
I apologize.
No worries. It was kind of an interesting enunciation, but more importantly, I wanted to disclose to the members and to the public that my wife works for Rummel Klepper and Call RKK, and so I will be abstaining from any discussion or vote related to this matter.
Well, you already corrected the name.
No, that's a different firm.
Okay, just teasing, just teasing. Any questions or comments from the members? Nope. Move right along to page 56.
Yes, fiscal matter 12, the administration is requesting approval of a contract with RJN Group, Inc. To provide on-call wastewater and potable water, pressurized main inspection and condition assessment services throughout the county's system. The contract commences upon council approval and continues for a 5-year term, initially with a option to renew for a 5-year period. The contract provides the contract does not specify a maximum compensation for the initial 5-year term. However, compensation may not exceed $3 million for the entire 10-year term, including renewal periods. This contract was selected through our Professional Services and Selection Committee meeting held on January 5th of 2022, based on best qualified, experience, and competitive bid process.
Okay, any questions or comments from the members? Seeing none, thank you very much, Mr. Flagg. Next, we're going to move on to page 9. Bill 51-22. Councilman Cash.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Very good. First of all, Mr. Chair, I would like to withdraw resolution 2922, which does directly relate to the legislation 5122. So I found out that the county, the administration is currently in the process of looking at the charging stations and the, so anyhow, there's no need to repeat the effort that's going on. So I will withdraw that resolution. Bill 5122 is legislation that is a result of a proposal for 13 of the electric charging stations being installed at a Royal Farms on Greenside Drive in Timonium, and they are not allowed to have gasoline at this particular station. And so what Royal Farms decided to do was to go ahead with 13 electric charging stations. The community is very concerned because of the traffic situation that already is in existence there, causing problems. Well, this bill really does not relate to their particular situation because what they're upset about is that during the limited exemption process, the initial limited exemption meeting. Of course, that meeting is not open to the public. And they didn't know about it until it was too late. Because of that, was no public input session, nothing like that. So what this legislation does, it takes the limited exemption process and it makes it open and transparent to the public. So what happens usually is when a developer goes for the exemption, the PIA goes to all of the departments for their comments, et cetera. And a meeting is usually initiated with these departments. And what this bill will do is it will open up that meeting to the public. And it requires that a sign be posted on the property measuring a certain, I think it's 36 by 48 inches. And it will give the public the information so that they will be able to go and hear what is going on. And in this situation, so, whichever a bureaucrat or whatever recommended that the placement of these electric charging stations, there's 13 of them, they're all Tesla, that the community would have known about it and could have been prepared. So I have talked with the administration, I've talked with PIA, Councilman Quirk had a constituent who was interested in it, in fact wants to expand this particular legislation. So today and yesterday, I got a number of amendments to the bill from various people, and I have not had a chance yet to take a look at them. I've talked with people who deal with land use issues, and I've no doubt we're going to be able to come to an agreement. But this bill is a step in the right direction. I've heard nothing but positive comments from community associations in my district and out of my district. And also PIA and the administration is supportive because obviously this administration is very interested in openness and transparency. So, Mr. Chair, I'm going to look at these amendments, and obviously I need to work something out between now and the voting session on Monday, and we'll certainly get the amendments to you as soon as possible. I don't think any of the amendments that are suggested are major. It's just a situation like, okay, this bill requires that a time period that the public staff meeting should not be held earlier than 30 days after receipt of the application. Well, what the amendment will be is 30 days after or between 30 and 45 days, changes like that. And so I'll be working on that in the next few days. And, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them for you. Again, it opens up the system that we have, and so that people will not be surprised and unhappy. I can tell you that this community association is very unhappy with what has happened. And so I think this is a step in the right direction. and the parties that carry this process through are supportive of this openness and transparency. So I thank you very much. And if you have any questions about any of the particular amendments, I mean, I'd be glad to answer them, but I just want you to know I haven't had a chance to look at them all because I just got some of them like 2 hours ago.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Boswell, you can add me as a co-sponsor. I definitely support what Councilman Katz is trying to do. Although I'm a big fan of Tesla and I love their superchargers, I think Councilman Katz is right. You know, engaging the community and more transparency, it just goes a long, long way. And often you can solve a lot of problems before they happen just with the right communication and the right engagement. And so, yeah, I definitely co-sponsor. I think it's a good idea. And then, you know, with Councilman Katz and, you know, our legal counsel, maybe we can look at this B8 exemption because constituent Eric Lamb, I think he makes a really good point. In the past, the B8 exemption has definitely been used, let's just say wide application. You know, I mean, is a lot 10,000 square feet? Is it 50,000, 100,000? Well, that's a lot different than 1 million square feet. And so there have literally been some exemptions that really are mind-boggling and surprising. So that's one I wouldn't mind kind of looping in on this, but, you know, talking to Councilman Katz and our legal staff on it and the council members and trying to get input and make sure that makes sense, or how does it make sense and how do we define it? But yeah, this is a good one. So definitely happy to co-sponsor. Thank you, Councilman Katz.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we have some speakers. Del Castro?
That is correct, Mr. Chair. Our first speaker for this item is Eric Rackle. Mr. Rackle.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. I come today in support of this bill. Quite frankly, the limited exemption process has been rather opaque, and many community associations do not understand it, nor do they have any way of trying to educate themselves short of taking up county personnel's time to get that education. This will codify many of the procedures in the limited exemption process, and I think that is a benefit. Now, limited exemptions are typically granted to a variety of commercial, industrial, or manufacturing projects, not so much to residential projects, but sometimes these limited exemptions can have impacts on adjacent residential areas or properties. For example, traffic impacts and storm drainage, issues dealing with adequate public facilities can impact the quality of life, as well as more aesthetic issues such as the glare from lighting intruding into residential properties from an adjacent commercial property, or a dumpster location that could create a noise nuisance for adjacent residential properties. That's why tonight I am suggesting that there should be an amendment to this bill that would include that if a property applying for a limited exemption is adjacent to or within 200 feet of a residentially zoned property or an RO property, that the limited exemption property be required to hold a community input meeting. I'm not suggesting that there should be a hearing officer's hearing after that community input meeting, but it would certainly clarify for the community many questions that they may have. And if that document is given to the panel that passes on the limited exemption, it may inform them as to some issues that should be considered when they discuss the limited exemption. So that's my take on this bill, and I hope you'll support adding that amendment to the bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Eric?
Yes.
Yeah, hi, it's Wade. Will you again go over how your amendment would interact with this particular legislation? So you would have the when would the public hearing be held, or the informational hearing, I guess it would be? When would- okay.
Yeah, the applicant would submit their application for the limited exemption, and then before the panel reviews all the county comments, that community input meeting would take place. The minutes therefrom would be forwarded to the panel, so they would be informed of the community's concerns prior to them making their decision. And again, typically, community input meetings are followed in residential projects by a hearing officer's hearing. I am not suggesting that at all. So it's community input meeting, then the limit exemption panel for their review and determination.
Okay, thank you very much. I do like your idea very much. Okay, very good. Now, I don't know, is the Royal Farms on Greenside, is that within 200 feet of the DVIA?
Yes, it is.
It is? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, very good. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rocco. We certainly appreciate your comments. Next speaker, Ms. Belcastro.
Mr. Chair, next speaker is Barbara Hopkins. Ms. Hopkins?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of the council. I'm here to testify in favor of Bill 5122 because of what it does to add a measure of transparency and fairness to our development process. Change is long overdue in this section of the Development Code, and as I have testified before you on numerous occasions, and many, many others, for these reasons, NeighborSpace supports the bill. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hopkins, for your comment. Next speaker, Ms. Belcastro.
Certainly, Chair. Our next speaker is Elizabeth Miller. Oh, but I do not see Ms. Miller on the work session as an attendee. I'm not sure. Let me double check real quick and make sure that she's not on by phone. Give me 1 minute, Mr. Chair.
Hello?
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm glad you found me. I was like, I'm on the phone. So can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I am speaking on behalf of myself, although my experience with the limited exemption bill or the limited exemption process comes from both my work in Greenhouse and Alliance and also as a community member. I wanted to share a couple situations. One, Councilman Marks is probably familiar with. We had a Starbucks that wanted to go in the place of a bank. The bank had a drive-through, and this was considered equal, a Starbucks drive-through and a bank drive-through. I never, in the 20-some years I lived here before that bank was turned into a Starbucks, saw cars wrapped around the bank, impeding pedestrian travel across the sidewalks, causing accidents on York Road when it was a bank. That happens when it's a Starbucks. So I think these are the kinds of issues that I wouldn't expect every personnel in PAI to be aware of. Also that the time when the cars are wrapped around that building are when students are trying to walk to school, middle school students. You know, it's a community awareness conflict that needs to be brought to the attention of those who are making these decisions. So I support this bill for that reason. I also concur with Mr. Rockel. There does need to be an opportunity for community input. I wonder if it was a McDonald's that was becoming a Burger King, that's not what I would call a material alteration. It's the same use. So I wonder if the community input should be at the request of the community once they've been notified. Maybe there needs to be proactive notification of community associations rather than simply a sign. That happens with many community associations. I think that works in the Towson area through the Towson's Community Alliance. Then the other, and this may be on the scope of this bill, but I think the definition of material alteration is something that needs to be examined. And the example I'm going to give of that is when on Towson Road, the Whole Foods building went forward. We went from having a through street connecting Towson Town Boulevard to Chesapeake Avenue. It was going to be a tree-lined street with 25 trees to a 6-foot pedestrian sort of alley. We went from having a central organizing plaza to having a plaza that's a strip along Towson Town Boulevard where the busiest traffic is. We went from having active commercial uses on Chesapeake Avenue to now having a parking garage, a loading dock, trash management, you know, a situation that sort of turned Chesapeake Avenue into an alley, a service alley. So these felt like pretty major changes that were approved without any community input. And the difficulty in a location like downtown Towson is the residents that are within 200 feet are renters, generally school students. They're not going to participate in this process. So, you know, in a place like downtown Towson, I think that's another facet of the situation that needs to be considered. So those are my comments. I'm not offering you a whole lot of solutions, but I just wanted to raise awareness about some of the issues. Thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you very much for your comment. And I believe that will do it for that issue.
Mr. Chair, I just have a question for our secretary, Mr. Bostwick. If property is changed, well, from McDonald's to Burger King or vice versa, would there, you know, would that require a limited exemption?
Mr. Katz, I think that might be a better question for Mr. Gutwald if he was on, or
Okay.
or Mr. Moxley, who heads the DRC.
I would suspect it would not be a material change.
Yeah, I wouldn't
I
think so.
agree, but I wouldn't want to be wrong.
Yeah, and that wouldn't be the goal either. Yeah, we're not trying to create work for.
Which restaurant do you prefer?
I couldn't hear you.
I guess it depends on what restaurant you like the best.
Oh, Burger King.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Councilman Katz. Any questions or comments from the members? None. We look forward to the amendments and see what the final item will look like. We'll move on to page 11, Bill 52-22. Councilman Marks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. This is a bill that deals with changeable copy signs. Changeable copy signs include animated or electronic message boards and manual changeable copy signs. A changeable copy sign may not display video, flashing, blinking, animation, strobing, or scrolling. There was a big debate about these signs about 15 years ago, and our county code was modified in a way that many community leaders believed would prohibit these outside the urban-rural demarcation line. There's a very clear division between the urban and rural parts of Baltimore County, not just in terms of land use or water or zoning, but in how we allow for signage that impacts the rural character of our communities. After several issues recently popped up in the Kingsville area, it became very clear that the statute needed to be cleaned up to expressly prohibited these type of digital signs. What I would like to do is ask for Tom Boswick, if it's all right with you, Mr. Chairman, to go into some of the details behind this, because I really view this more as a housekeeping type of bill, and he can provide you with kind of the history of this.
Yes, sir, Mr. Marks. So 450.7 of the zoning regulations, 450 deals with signs, and 450.7 articulates certain special requirements for particular classes of signs, including changeable copy signs. There are a number of types of changeable copy signs, including ones that can be changed manually, periodically by electronic or electric controls or other means. And what the bill, what the regulation says is that changeable copy signs are permitted as long as they are accessory to a planned shopping center or any separate commercial establishment in a business zone under certain limitations. They are as follows. A freestanding changeable copy sign can be erected only as an integral part of an otherwise permitted enterprise or joint identification sign. Up to 50% of the erected sign area may be devoted to changeable copy. Animated signs require a special exception, and electronic changeable copy signs are not permitted in the CR district or outside the URDL or in historic districts. But again, keeping in mind, these restrictions or limitations only deal with changeable copy signs that are accessory to a planned shopping center or any separate commercial establishment in a business zone. So there is a gap dealing with changeable copy signs or even electronic changeable copy signs outside the URDL in general, and not under that circumstance of accessory to a planned shopping center or in a business zone. So what this bill aims to do is clarify and make it clear that changeable copy signs are not permitted outside the URDL. Currently, another section of this regulation, another subsection, states that electronic changeable copy signs are not permitted within 250 feet of national scenic byways, and that is all. So what this bill does is it also clarifies that these signs are also not permitted outside the URDL in any event.
I thank you, Mr. Boswick, and I have to admit, full disclosure, I've been a big supporter of these changeable copy signs for our libraries, for our schools, so that people can know what's going on inside, and you don't have the issue of people having to walk outside and change the letters on the sign in the year 2022. So I also know that Councilman Marks, you were interested in, I know you made a comment before about a school where you secured money for the sign, and you felt as though the DCPS was not moving fast enough implementing the sign. Now, I understand we don't want our rural areas to look like Las Vegas, but I'm just thinking, if I were buying a sign today, and I live outside of the URDL, I wouldn't be buying a sign that I have to go out there and change the copy myself. It would be an electronic sign. I'm just curious, like, I mean, to me, this is almost like a 2022 issue, like technology. Who's buying signs that they can't change electronically today?
Well, the school you mentioned is Joppa View Elementary School, which is well within the URDL, and that's fine. That's a growth area. heavily developed commercial area. The issue is that unless we tighten this bill, areas that we spend a lot of time and attention trying to preserve as rural sanctuaries, green areas, preserved from this type of clutter, suddenly get filled up with electronic signage. And, you know, I think there's some merit in keeping them into the urbanized areas.
I thought the purpose of the ERDL was to stop water and sewer, not necessarily. I mean, I have a situation on Liberty Road outside of the ERDL where a church wanted to replace their sign and they wanted to have an electronic sign so that they could say whatever information is going on inside the church, they can alert the public to that. And I certainly, nor I or anybody in my community,
I was
to the church.
Well, I mean, you rate, yeah, sure, the ERDL, which was created in 1966. I mean, you're right. It plays a role in land use and zoning, certainly, and water. And I said that in my testimony, but it also is a de facto boundary between urban and rural. I mean, and it's been successful, I think. I think what a lot of people are concerned about is a creep of these types of signs into very aesthetically attractive and rural communities.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Bostwick, if this bill were to pass, I can think of churches in northern Baltimore County that already have electronic changeable signs, and also public schools. What would that do with the churches and the schools, et cetera?
My first reaction, Mr. Katz, would be that they would be non-conforming uses, in which case they would still be permitted.
Except for they had to replace.
What?
I was helping Mr. Bostwick out. What if they wanted to replace the sign?
As long as it is, well, the only problem, even with a non-conforming sign, is that there is an enforcement section in section 450.8. Actually, it's called administration and compliance. I think I have to look more into this and review section 450.8.c that deals with non-conforming signs and get an answer to you, Mr. Katz.
What about, you mentioned shopping centers or commercial areas. I don't know if you're familiar with, I call it the Grouse Shopping Center on Mount Carmel Road. Are you familiar with it?
I am not, sir.
Okay, well, it's a strip shopping center, has bank and drugstore and also government. And would that qualify then as a commercial use, and they would be able to have the changeable signs in front of that, or not? You had mentioned commercial sites, and I wasn't quite sure what that related to.
So a changeable copy sign is subject in a changeable copy sign that is accessory to a planned shopping center or any separate commercial establishment in a business zone is subject to certain limitations, which I articulated earlier. So they would be permitted, but they would be subject to these four limitations, including that electronic changeable copy would not be permitted in the CR district or outside the ERDL or in historic districts. So, but that again is only related to planned shopping centers or separate commercial establishments in a business zone.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I shouldn't say this because it'll probably happen tomorrow, but I've been not gotten complaints from the community regarding any of the changeable signs that are there today. And maybe after people hear this, I'll get these complaints. I hope not. But yeah, I think that I understand Councilman Marks. He does not want to clutter up our rural areas with these signs, and I totally agree with him 100%, with no question about it. And they're already not allowed on our scenic highways, correct?
That was actually my bill. That was,
Correct? Isn't that true?
that was my bill. That was Charles Street that was aimed at.
Okay, so I think we need to take a close look at this bill. I'm just wondering if there's a way to find some middle ground that we're not going to, with the churches and the schools, that we're not going to affect them in any way. So if you just give that some thought, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very, very much. Any additional questions or comments? I do believe we do have a speaker.
That is correct, Mr. Chair. Doug Bear. Mr. Bear?
I see him on.
Let me try. Mr. Bear?
Hello.
There you go.
Oh, thank you. So thank you very much. I'm sorry about that. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. First, I want to wish sincerely to thank Councilman Marks for his willingness to introduce this bill regarding a very slight change to the sign law. I'm a member of the board of the Greater Kingsville Civic Association, and our board is in full agreement about this issue. Also, members of our board, including me, sat on the county committee for major change to the signage regulations starting in 1995. So we've been dealing with, as you all might know, the signage hadn't been revisited for like 38 years. And so we started in 1995 and revisited the entire regulations. From the time of those meetings, it was determined that changeable electronic signs were to be prohibited outside the URDL. This has been the county's position since then, and the courts have defeated the few attempts at violations of this law. Recently, however, what might be called a publishing error has led to a misinterpretation of aspects of the law. What Bill 5222 proposes is not a major change in the law. Our desire is simply to clarify the county's existing position on this longstanding law. So in discussion with county staff and zoning, we agreed that there was a simple solution to assure that a correct interpretation would be made by changing one item in section 450.7b. Currently, the verbiage that refers to ECC signs outside the URDL falls under section 1 as a letter of the alphabet, D, and needs to stand alone as a number. And I'll add that there are many, many counties throughout the United States that do not permit these type of signs because they are considered unsightly and certainly not in keeping with rural character. And I'm not aware, and I drive a lot in rural Baltimore County, I cannot think of any churches that have these signs. There is no in the law any allowance for nonconformance. These are just simply simply prohibited. As far as I get the safety thing, there's really no need to put electronic, basically flashing signs on our rural roads. They're distracting, and we're so glad that the law was passed years ago. It's simply a matter of straightening the law. It's not changing the law. And I sincerely appreciate the work that you all do, and thank you for continued efforts and dedication on behalf of the county. Thank you very much.
Go ahead, Councilor Marks, but I appreciate your comments, Mr. Baer.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to specify where they are, but there are churches with signs that seem to meet the description of what isn't allowed. I'm not going to name them. And But as I said, well, anyhow, let's, move forward.
Okay. I guess what we'll do, we'll move on and we'll discuss it some more. But I'm in my mind, I'm just thinking on a rural road, there's a liquor store in the corner of some intersection, and they have a big sign, and it says, whatever's on sale today, and next week there's something else on sale, and I guess I've seen these signs in all different shape, forms, or fashion. Everything from the biggest Las Vegas sign to the small sign that says Acme liquor store, and on the bottom it has a couple of letters that change, $5.99 for Bud Light, whatever, I don't know. But when you say changeable copy, you're including them all, everything that's electronic.
Right.
And I certainly don't want to clutter up our highways, but I want to be reasonable to people who have a church. And like I said, I've advocated for every school to have it and raise money for our school, our local school could have it, and advocated for every library. Because I just think there's a lot of things that's going on inside that we need to notify the public about. And it's easier to change it electronically. If you have to go outside and change the sign, it just doesn't happen. But anyway, any additional questions or comments? I think we have one more item. Okay, now we'll move on to page 61. Resolution 27-22, Ms. Bevan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This resolution 2722 approves a review for PUD, a plan unit development in my district. This was put forth by Enterprise, and I know a lot of you are familiar with Enterprise. This PUD would be known as Ridgedale, and it has met all the requirements thus far. There have been 2 community meetings, and I think both were done virtually. Ridgedale is sitting on 9.12 acres within the Erdel, and 5.5 with smaller portions in the business local, some of the residential office zones, as well as BL Automotive. This is located at the 7500 block of Philadelphia Road in the Rosedale area. What would come with this would be 40 townhomes. They would be rentals, not for market, and an 80 unit independent senior apartment complex. The community benefit that would be provided with this would be silver rating according to the U.S. Green Building Council's Green Building Rating System, and we're looking for more economically better standards in those types of construction. There's a land use benefit, including fitness, walking, trails. There's a public benefit promoting economic development opportunities by providing workforce housing, and the capital improvements, including the donation of, there's already an existing dwelling on the land, and that would go to the Rosedale Volunteer Fire Department for them to light on fire and put out. And there's needs to be a correction in this copy. It says an additional $20,000 contribution to the Rosedale Senior Center. That is incorrect. That would be for the Rosedale Volunteer Fire Company. So, as most of you know, I think probably everybody's dealt with trying to get more senior housing in their district, because we know when seniors leave their homes, whether they were 20, 30, 40, 50 years, they usually like to stay in the area or around the area that they're familiar with or where their family members are. And this is just one more of those projects. By right, on this land, they could automatically build the 40 townhomes. So they could do that by right. So this to me is adding some quality housing for our senior citizens in the Rosedale area. And I hope you'll support it. I've been working with Terry Hickey and within our housing department, and I've also been working with Mr. Lafferty in our Office of Planning on this project.
Mr. Secretary,
Councilman Katz?
I have a question, and just listening to Councilwoman Bevins has let me ask you, about how long does it take a PUD like the one that Councilman Bevins has introduced to actually reach time or
Can you repeat that, sir?
Yeah, I was just wondering, well, let me tell you why. I have a situation where I'm being asked to do something similar with a PUD, but I'm unable to get really any agreement in the community. And this area, after December, will transfer to Councilman Jones. It'll be in his jurisdiction. And I basically have told the people of the area that, after a while, it's just I'm not going to feel comfortable putting in this legislation because it'll probably end up being, being voted on when Councilman Jones is actually the council member. So I was just trying to figure out, what time period, what would be a reasonable deadline, I guess, to give these people. If you don't work it out by then, sorry to throw it on you, Councilor Jones.
Thanks a lot.
If you don't figure it out by a certain date, I'd suggest that you confer with the new council member, because I don't want it to, go that the consideration of the legislation be in my district, and then by the time it's settled and voted on, it's in Councilman Jones' district. So
I can tell you this, Councilman Katz, it may be helpful to let them know that if and when it becomes my area, I will be referring to you for seeking your advice and counsel on whether to proceed. I say that to say, hopefully they can come up with some type of an agreement, and no one thinks that all they need to do is get for me.
Well, I would just like to say that this work has been in the process for way over 6 months. And I think when you're that far out, I wouldn't refer it to the next council person, 6 months ago, all the way up until December. I'm still in office. There's been the community meetings, and again, working with Mr. Hickey and Mr. Lafferty as well. So I can't answer the question. This would only be my second PUD. I've only had one PUD that just broke ground actually from many years ago, Waters Landing. So I can't speak to how long, Mr. Boswick, if you can answer that.
Well, I would say that over the years, the council has put in certain procedural safeguards so that an application that is filed just does not sit forever and then can all of a sudden be, resurrected or a resolution put in. If a resolution to approve the continued review of a PUD hasn't been introduced within 270 days of the last post-submission community meeting, then the application expires and a new application must be submitted, and the developer has to basically start over again. There's also, of course, the safeguard that if a PUD application is put in within 60 days of the end of a term, and another council member then assumes office, that council member has 60 days after the term starts to reconsider that PUD resolution. So it's hard to exactly answer the question, but I would say there are some safeguards that the council has put in to make sure that things do get acted on in a timely manner.
And I guess
Your
I guess the other
bill
part,
brought up, I'm sorry, the bill you introduced just brought up this issue that I'm having, that this
Right.
back and forth. It's no comment on your what you're
No,
doing at all. You got plenty of time. I'm not concerned
If
about
this
that.
was, if this was something that was just brought to my attention now, I could see, I can see your point of view on it, absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially since the primary has already been held. But this has been in the works, and I don't know if Mr. Hickey or Mr. Lafferty is on board, but on this phone call rather, I don't know if we have a date when these discussions started. But it's been a while. It's been a while.
Yeah.
Have two community meetings, spaced out, and they were held virtually. I don't know if they're online and want to comment about that. But I understand what you're saying, but this has been going on for at least more than a half a year. So, I didn't think it was that close till December.
Yeah, and you're a lot further along than the situation in my district is. That's all. And I just
Madam Councilman, Mr. Hickey is here.
Oh, okay. Mr. Hickey?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Councilwoman Bevins.
Hi.
You want to speak on when these first conversations started about the PUD process for Ridgedale and maybe even the first community meeting?
Yeah, well, even pre-PUD, there was a live community meeting. It was one of the first community meetings I got to go to. That was close to a year ago.
Right.
That I attended with the folks from Enterprise, and then two separate community meetings after the PUD was first submitted over the last few months. So it's been going on for a while, and we appreciate your close work on this.
Okay, so it's even, Councilman Catch, it's even longer than I thought, over a year. So yeah, at that point, I don't look at myself as an inactive council person, not willing to still move forward with projects, even with my retirement looming.
No, I was just concerned that my issue would bleed over into
the
new council member not the new member. I mean, the councilman that will take over the district, this particular precinct. That's what I was concerned about.
Well, we know the PUD process, and we know that there's many more meetings.
Oh, yeah.
Be held on this.
Absolutely.
particular-
Absolutely.
And
But again, I was not commenting on yours at all.
I
Not
guarantee you
at
that
all.
we'll be fully engaged, and there will be somebody new sitting in office, and I hope that they see the benefit of the senior housing for the district. Thank you, Mr. Hickey. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments from any of the members?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
One last thing I did want to note. I didn't want to forget to do this at the regular session. Mike Pierce passed away. I don't know if you remember Mike Pierce. He lives in King.
Pierce. Oh,
Yes. Yeah, Mike Pierce lived in Kingsville. He was very good about reporting code enforcement cases. He was a real stickler for the law. And I just wanted to mention that to you all. He was a good man.
That was the sign.
And signs.
Yeah.
He died on July 4th.
Oh,
I was in Kingsville at the parade, and they said he had passed away. But I did want to note that I think he gave a real tough time to some folks in the county, and he was
With the
very
sign.
and to me, and he held us to high standards. But I did want to acknowledge his passing.
Wow, sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Me too. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm very sorry to hear that.
Yes. Yeah.
It's been a long afternoon, and I want to thank everybody for their time and attendance, and certainly appreciate all the callers for calling in, and appreciate them. And unless there's something else, I'm going to adjourn the meeting.
Well,
Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Before we adjourn, I'd just like to congratulate, I haven't seen his on one space yet, congratulate everybody on their primary wins.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
night.
Take care.
Good night.
Thank you,
Take care. Bye.
You.